The market of Tarvon was not a place of joy. It was a place of trade, and not the kind of trade where gold or silver mattered. Here the trade was of lives. Cages lined the walls, filled with broken beings from many worlds, slaves, beggars, and the forgotten. In the corner of this cruel place sat a mother and her daughter. The mother was alien, her skin pale blue, stretched thin over bones, her once bright hair tangled with dirt, her eyes hollow but still holding a soft glow when she looked at her child. The daughter was small, barely more than a child who should have been playing, but hunger had stolen her laughter. She clung to her mother's torn dress, whispering that she was hungry, again and again. The mother had nothing left, nothing to sell, nothing to give. She had traded her necklace, her shoes, even her blanket. She had offered her work, her strength, her pride, but no one wanted those. Now, all she had left was her body, and in her heart she was ready to give even that, if it meant her daughter would eat. Her lips trembled as she whispered to the crowd passing by, "Please, just a piece of bread for her, not for me, only for her." Her voice was soft, almost broken, but the people of Tarvon did not stop. They laughed, they spat, they looked away. The market was loud. Lights flickered above. Traders shouted about prices, about ships, about weapons, but her words were lost in the noise. Still she begged, still she reached out, her hands shaking, her eyes wet. Then, among the crowd, a figure slowed. He was human, taller than most, wrapped in a dark coat that hid much of his face. His boots were worn, his eyes sharp. He had seen the cruelty of the galaxy before. He had seen greed, war, and despair, but this scene caught him in a way nothing else had. He stopped, standing only a few steps from her. The crowd moved around him, annoyed, rushing, but he did not move. His gaze locked on the mother and child. The mother noticed him, and in her last flicker of hope, she lowered her head, whispering again, "Please, for her, I beg you." The little girl looked up too, her eyes big, wide, empty of energy yet glowing with a quiet plea. She had no words left, only a soft cry. The human crouched down slowly, his coat brushing the dust, his eyes studying the mother's hands, cracked and cut, then the girl's face, too thin, too pale, and for a moment he said nothing. The mother's heart beat fast. She feared he would laugh like the others. She feared he would mock her, or worse. She had offered her body already to strangers, not for desire but for survival, and each refusal had cut her soul deeper. But the human's eyes did not mock. They did not shine with cruelty. Instead, they carried something rare in Tarvon, something almost forgotten. They carried pity. He reached into his coat, the crowd barely noticing, and pulled out a small packet, a ration pack, the kind soldiers carried on long trips. He opened it carefully, breaking off a piece of bread-like food, and without a word he held it out to the girl. The girl's eyes lit up, her tiny hands shaking as she reached for it. The mother froze, tears burning her cheeks. She whispered again, softer this time, "Thank you." The human nodded, his face still hard, but his voice low, steady. "Eat, little one, eat." The girl bit the food quickly, too quickly, as if afraid it would vanish. The mother held her shoulders, guiding her to eat slower, but even her own stomach twisted painfully at the smell. The human broke another piece, handing it to the mother. She shook her head at first, only for her, but he placed it in her hand anyway, his tone sharp but kind. "She needs you alive too." The mother's lips parted, but no words came. She ate slowly, feeling the dry bread crumble on her tongue. It was the first real food in days. The noise of the market seemed distant now. The mother's eyes locked on the human, trying to understand, trying to guess his reason. Why would a stranger, a human, stop for her when her own people had walked past? The human rose to his feet, taller now, his shadow falling across them. The crowd still moved, still shouted, but in this small corner, silence grew. He looked down at them, his hand still inside his coat, as if weighing a decision. Then he said words that froze the mother's heart. "This place will kill you both. Come with me." The mother stared, her mind racing. Was this another trick, another cruel hand, or was this the one moment fate had given her? Her daughter looked up, crumbs still on her lips, eyes full of hope. The mother's chest ached. She wanted to believe, but belief was dangerous. The human waited, his eyes steady, his voice like stone. Decide now. And in that moment, the mother realized her choice would change everything, not only for herself, but for her daughter. The mother's breath caught in her throat. The human's words were sharp like a blade. Decide now, he had said, and the sound of his voice still echoed inside her mind. Her arms tightened around her daughter, the little girl's eyes wide with silent hope, the mother's own heart torn between fear and trust. In Tarvan's market, there were no heroes, only hunters and prey. She had learned that too many times. She had begged before, she had trusted before, and every time the answer had been cruelty. Yet this human was different. He had fed them. He had looked at her daughter not with hunger, but with care. Still, was it enough to follow him? The human stood waiting, tall and unshaken, his shadow long under the dim lights. People pushed past him, muttering at the delay, but he did not move. He was patient, his eyes fixed on the mother as if he could see her thoughts, his hand still resting in his coat, ready for whatever came. The mother closed her eyes, whispering a silent prayer to whatever god still listened. Then she nodded, her voice low, trembling. I will come. Her daughter clung tighter, almost as if sensing something had changed. The human gave no smile, no cheer. He only turned, his voice steady. Then stay close. He moved through the crowd, and the mother followed, pulling her daughter by the hand, her heart pounding like a drum, each step heavy. They weaved past cages of chained beings, past traders shouting, past guards with cruel eyes. She kept her head low, fearing they might be stopped, but no one dared step in front of the human. There was something in the way he walked, something in his presence that warned others to leave him alone. The mother's daughter whispered, Mama, where are we going? Her small voice trembling. The mother hushed her gently. Quiet, my love, quiet. The path twisted until they reached the edge of the market, a gate guarded by two armored men, their rifles glowing faintly in the smoke-filled night. One raised his hand, blocking the way. Where do you think you're going? His voice rough. The human did not slow. He pulled a small card from his coat and flashed it quickly. The guard looked at it, frowned, but then stepped back, muttering under his breath. The second guard only watched, his eyes narrowing at the mother and child, but saying nothing. The mother could hardly believe it. No questions, no demands. The human had walked them out as if he owned the place. Her chest loosened for the first time in days, a small taste of air free from the stench of the cages. Outside, the night was cold, the streets of Tarvan dark and broken. Neon signs flickered in half-dead colors, machines hummed in the distance, and shadows moved in alleys. The human led them down narrow paths, his steps careful, his eyes always scanning. Finally, he stopped in front of a battered transport, an old ship resting in silence, its metal scarred from years of travel. He opened the hatch, the smell of oil and steel rushing out. Get in, he ordered. The mother hesitated, clutching her daughter, fear rising again. What if this was a trap? What if he sold them to another slaver? But then she looked at her daughter's tired face, the crumbs still on her lips, the soft glow of trust in her eyes. She could not go back. She could not stay in Tarvan. So she stepped inside, the ship's floor cold under her bare feet, her daughter's hand clutching hers tightly. The human closed the hatch behind them with a heavy thud, sealing the world of Tarvan away. The inside was small but alive, lights flickering on, consoles blinking, chairs worn but real, a home of sorts. The human walked to the cockpit and pressed switches, engines rumbling awake, the vibration filling the ship. The mother sat her daughter on a bench, wrapping her arms around her, whispering, It will be all right. It will be all right. Though she was not sure if it was true. The human's voice came from the cockpit, steady, calm. You are safe now, for the moment. The mother lifted her head, her voice shaky. Why? Why did you help us? The human turned his head slightly, his face lit by the glow of the console, his eyes unreadable. Because no one else would. Silence filled the cabin for a long moment. Only the hum of the engines breaking it. The mother stared at him, searching for hidden meaning, but found none. His voice had been honest, simple. The ship lifted from the ground, rising into the dark sky, Tarvan shrinking below them, its cruel lights fading into shadow. The daughter gasped softly, eyes wide at the view, pressing her hands against the small window. The mother watched too, tears rolling down her cheeks, for the first time in so long. The chains of Tarvon no longer held her. The human's voice came again, quiet but strong. You will need to decide where to go, but for now, you rest. The mother lowered her head, whispering, "Thank you," though her heart still carried doubt. The daughter leaned into her, whispering softly, "Mama, he saved us," and the mother held her tighter, her eyes on the human's steady hands guiding the ship. But deep inside, questions burned. Who was this man? Why had he chosen her? And what dangers would come from following him? The ship broke free from Tarvan's polluted sky, the stars opening like scattered diamonds against a black canvas. The hum of the engine steady, the small vessel cutting through the void. Inside, the mother and her daughter clung together, still unsure if they were truly safe. The human sat in the pilot's chair, his hands firm on the controls, his eyes fixed on the vast emptiness ahead. He had not spoken much since they left, his silence heavy, his presence sharp. The mother could only watch him from the shadows of the cabin, her mind racing with questions she dared not ask. Her daughter leaned close, whispering softly, "Mama, he is strong. He is not like the others," her small voice filled with innocent faith. The mother brushed her hair gently, whispering back, "Yes, but we must be careful," though her own voice shook with doubt. After some time, the engine slowed, the human pressed a sequence of buttons. The ship drifted into a calmer pace. Then he finally spoke, his voice low, calm. "You will not survive out there without food, water, or shelter. I can provide these things, but you must listen and obey." The mother's chest tightened. His words were not cruel, but they carried weight. She lowered her head. "I understand." The daughter looked at him with wide eyes, nodding quickly, though she did not fully grasp what obedience meant. The human turned slightly, the dim lights revealing more of his face. Scars ran across his jaw, his eyes tired yet burning with focus. He asked, "What are your names?" The mother hesitated. Names were dangerous. Names could be sold, stolen, used, but something in his tone pressed her to answer. "I am Lyra, and this is my daughter, Sarah," she said softly. The human nodded once. "Lyra and Sarah," he repeated, as if sealing the names into memory. "I am Kale." No title, no family name. Only Kale, the sound of it strange yet strong. The silence stretched again, broken only by the faint buzz of the ship. Lyra's mind spun. Kale had saved them. But for what reason? She studied him, his movements precise, disciplined, too calm for a wanderer, too sharp for a traitor. He was a man trained in something darker. Hours passed. Sarah fell asleep in her mother's arms, her breathing soft and peaceful for the first time in days. Lyra laid her gently on the bench, covering her with the ragged cloth that was once her dress. She looked at Kale again, whispering, "Why Tarvon? Why were you there?" Kale did not look at her, his eyes still on the stars. "Because places like Tarvon are where the galaxy shows its true face. I needed supplies, and I found more than I expected." His words sent a shiver through her. More than he expected. Did that mean her? Did that mean Sarah? Lyra's heart beat faster. She wanted to ask more, but fear closed her lips. Kale rose from the chair, his tall figure casting shadows across the cabin. He opened a metal compartment and pulled out 2 sealed water pouches, tossing one toward her. "Drink," he ordered. Lyra caught it clumsily, staring at the clear liquid inside. Her throat burned with thirst, but she looked at Sarah first, opening the pouch and guiding it to her daughter's lips. The child drank greedily, even in her sleep, a drop spilling down her cheek. Lyra smiled faintly, then took a sip herself. The water was clean, pure, almost painful against her dry throat. Kale watched silently, his face unreadable, but when Lyra lowered the pouch, he spoke again. "You gave everything for her, didn't you?" Lyra froze, her eyes widening. How could he know? How could he see through her so easily? Her voice broke as she whispered, "Yes, everything, even myself." Kale's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing, not in judgment but in thought. He paced slowly, his boots echoing softly on the metal floor. "The galaxy will eat you alive for that kind of love," he muttered, almost to himself. Lyra hugged Sarah close, her voice firm despite her fear. "Then let it eat me, as long as she lives." Kale stopped, turning to face her fully. For the first time, his hard mask cracked, a flicker of respect passing across his face. He said nothing more, only returned to the pilot's seat. The ship carried on through the stars, but danger was never far. Red lights suddenly flashed on the console. Kale's hands moved quickly, his voice sharp. Hold on. Lyra's heart leapt. She clutched Sarah tightly as the ship jolted, the view outside shifting, a shadow sliding across the stars, another vessel emerging from the dark, its hull marked with the cruel symbols of slavers. Kale cursed under his breath, his eyes narrowing. They followed us. Lyra's blood ran cold, her lips trembling. They want us back. Kale's hands danced over the controls, whispering softly, "Mama, he saved us." And the mother held her tighter, her eyes on the human's steady hands guiding the ship. But deep inside, questions burned. Who was this man? Why had he chosen her? And what dangers would come from following him? The ship broke free from Tarvan's polluted sky, the stars opening like scattered diamonds against a black canvas. The hum of the engine steady, the small vessel cutting through the void. Inside, the mother and her daughter clung together, still unsure if they were truly safe. The human sat in the pilot's chair, his hands firm on the controls, his eyes fixed on the vast emptiness ahead. He had not spoken much since they left, his silence heavy, his presence sharp. The mother could only watch him from the shadows of the cabin, her mind racing with questions she dared not ask. Her daughter leaned close, whispering softly, "Mama, he is strong. He is not like the others." Her small voice filled with innocent faith. The mother brushed her hair gently, whispering back, "Yes, but we must be careful," though her own voice shook with doubt. After some time, the engine slowed, the human pressed a sequence of buttons, the ship drifted into a calmer pace. Then he finally spoke, his voice low, calm. "You will not survive out there without food, water, or shelter. I can provide these things, but you must listen and obey." The mother's chest tightened. His words were not cruel, but they carried weight. She lowered her head. "I understand." The daughter looked at him with wide eyes, nodding quickly, though she did not fully grasp what obedience meant. The human turned slightly, the dim lights revealing more of his face. Scars ran across his jaw, his eyes tired yet burning with focus. He asked, "What are your names?" The mother hesitated. Names were dangerous. Names could be sold, stolen, used, but something in his tone pressed her to answer. "I am Lyra, and this is my daughter, Sarah," she said softly. The human nodded once. "Lyra and Sarah," he repeated, as if sealing the names into memory. "I am Kale." No title, no family name. Only Kale, the sound of it strange yet strong. The silence stretched again, broken only by the faint buzz of the ship. Lyra's mind spun. Kale had saved them. But for what reason? She studied him, his movements precise, disciplined, too calm for a wanderer, too sharp for a traitor. He was a man trained in something darker. Hours passed. Sarah fell asleep in her mother's arms, her breathing soft and peaceful for the first time in days. Lyra laid her gently on the bench, covering her with the ragged cloth that was once her dress. She looked at Kale again, whispering, "Why Tarvan? Why were you there?" Kale did not look at her, his eyes still on the stars. "Because places like Tarvan are where the galaxy shows its true face. I needed supplies, and I found more than I expected." His words sent a shiver through her. More than he expected. Did that mean her? Did that mean Sarah? Lyra's heart beat faster. She wanted to ask more, but fear closed her lips. Kale rose from the chair, his tall figure casting shadows across the cabin. He opened a metal compartment and pulled out 2 sealed water pouches, tossing one toward her. "Drink," he ordered. Lyra caught it clumsily, staring at the clear liquid inside. Her throat burned with thirst, but she looked at Sarah first, opening the pouch and guiding it to her daughter's lips. The child drank greedily, even in her sleep, a drop spilling down her cheek. Lyra smiled faintly, then took a sip herself. The water was clean, pure, almost painful against her dry throat. Kale watched silently, his face unreadable, but when Lyra lowered the pouch, he spoke again. "You gave everything for her, didn't you?" Lyra froze, her eyes widening. How could he know? How could he see through her so easily? Her voice broke as she whispered, "Yes, everything, even myself." Kale's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing. Not in judgment, but in thought. He paced slowly, his boots echoing softly on the metal floor. The galaxy will eat you alive for that kind of love, he muttered, almost to himself. Lyra hugged Sarah close, her voice firm despite her fear. Then let it eat me, as long as she lives. Cale stopped, turning to face her fully. For the first time his hard mask cracked, a flicker of respect passing across his face. He said nothing more, only returned to the pilot's seat. The ship carried on through the stars, but danger was never far. Red lights suddenly flashed on the console. Cale's hands moved quickly, his voice sharp. Hold on. Lyra's heart leapt. She clutched Sarah tightly as the ship jolted, the view outside shifting, a shadow sliding across the stars. Another vessel emerging from the dark, its hull marked with the cruel symbols of slavers. Cale cursed under his breath, his eyes narrowing. They followed us. Lyra's blood ran cold, her lips trembling. They want us back. Cale's hands danced over the controls, his voice low. I said they will not have you. And with that, he slammed a final sequence into the console. The ship surged forward, engines screaming, diving into the darkness of a nearby asteroid field. The slavers followed, the hunt beginning. The asteroid field opened before them like a graveyard of shattered worlds, massive rocks drifting in silence, each one turning slowly in the void. Cale gripped the controls, his eyes locked on the shifting paths of stone and shadow. Behind them, the slaver ship roared closer, its engines glowing red. Lyra held Sarah tightly. Both of them pressed against the bench as the ship shook, sparks leaping from a loose panel above. Sarah cried softly, her small hands clinging to her mother's dress. Lyra whispered over and over, it's all right, though fear burned inside her chest. Cale's voice cut through the chaos, calm but firm. Stay low, don't move. He pushed the ship hard to the left, narrowly sliding past a spinning rock the size of a mountain. The slaver vessel fired, blasts of energy tearing through the dark, one beam striking an asteroid and exploding it into shards that rattled against Cale's hull. Lyra gasped, the noise echoing like thunder inside the small cabin. She watched Cale, his hands steady, his jaw set. There was no fear in his face, only focus. He moved like a man who had flown through death before. The slavers pressed closer, their ship larger, heavier, armed with more weapons. Cale muttered, they think numbers win every fight. His fingers flew across the console, switches flipping, a hidden panel sliding open. Two small cannons unfolded from the sides of his ship. Lyra's eyes widened. You are armed, she whispered. Cale's lips tightened, enough to bite back. He pulled the trigger. The cannon spat fire, bursts of light streaking across the darkness, slamming into the slavers' shields. The enemy ship shuddered but did not fall. Instead it answered with a storm of fire. The hull of Cale's ship rattled again, alarms screaming. Sarah whimpered, burying her face in Lyra's chest. Lyra's heart raced, her eyes darting to Cale. We cannot win, she whispered desperately. Cale's eyes burned as he snapped back. We don't need to win. We just need to survive. He pulled the ship into a dive, weaving between two massive asteroids that scraped so close their shadows swallowed the vessel whole. The slaver ship followed, scraping its side against a rock, sparks and metal breaking loose. Cale smirked faintly, too big for their own greed. His hands moved faster, guiding the ship through tighter and tighter spaces, the asteroids spinning like blades ready to crush anyone who made a single mistake. Lyra clutched the bench, sweat on her palms, watching in silence as Cale danced with death, his every move sharp, precise, fearless. Yet her fear only grew. Why are they chasing us? Why won't they stop? She cried. Cale's voice came low, bitter. Because slavers never stop. They see you as property, not people. They will follow until I show them otherwise. Another blast hit the back of the ship, the cabin jolting. Lyra cried out. Metal groaned. Lights flickered. Cale cursed under his breath. Shields are fading. He slammed another switch. Energy pulsed through the ship, the engines roaring louder. The vessel shot forward like a spear, diving deeper into the maze of stone. The slaver ship twisted to follow, its guns glowing brighter, but the path was narrowing, rocks closing in on all sides. Cale pushed harder. Hold on. He barked. Lyra wrapped her arms around Sarah, closing her eyes as the ship scraped between two jagged cliffs of stone, sparks raining outside the windows. Then, suddenly, light opened ahead. A break in the field. Kale's ship burst through, leaving the dense rocks behind. But so did the slavers, their engines burning hot. Kale slammed the console with his fist, his jaw set. "Persistent dogs," he hissed. Lyra's voice broke, filled with tears. "We cannot keep running forever." Kale turned his head slightly, his eyes catching hers, sharp and unshaken. "No, we cannot. That's why I will end it." Her heart froze. "End it," she whispered, her grip tightening on Sarah. Kale pulled open another panel, his hand reaching for a heavy lever hidden beneath the console, his voice low. "This ship carries something they don't expect, something I built for moments like this." Lyra's eyes widened, fear and wonder mixing. "What do you mean?" Kale didn't answer. He pulled the lever. Deep inside the hull, a hidden compartment unlocked. Small drones launching from beneath the wings, their lights flickering red as they spread out in the darkness, circling back toward the slaver ship. The enemy vessel opened fire, but the drones moved too fast, darting between blasts, slamming against the slavers' shields and detonating in bright bursts. The hull of the larger ship groaned, cracks spreading across its side. Kale's voice was steady. "Calm. Never chase a man into the dark when you don't know what he's hiding." He pressed another switch. The last drone slammed directly into the slaver's engine, the explosion tearing through the back of the vessel, flames and smoke spilling into the void. Lyra's eyes widened, her lips parting in disbelief. The slaver ship spun out of control, drifting into the asteroid field it had once commanded, rocks tearing into its broken hull, until it was nothing but fire and silence. Kale exhaled slowly, his hands loosening on the controls, his voice quiet. "It's over." The ship steadied, the alarms dimming, silence returning. Lyra hugged Sarah tighter, tears spilling down her face. She whispered again and again, it's over," as if saying it would make it true. Kale leaned back in the pilot's chair, his eyes closing for a moment. But when he opened them, they burned with the same focus as before. He looked at Lyra, his voice low but heavy. "You understand now. Staying with me means danger. Those men will not be the last. They will come again. More will follow." Lyra met his gaze, her heart heavy but her voice firm. "Then let them come. I will not go back." Kale studied her in silence, the faintest flicker of something, respect, maybe even admiration. Crossing his face, he nodded once, turning back to the stars. And in that silence, for the first time, Lyra felt the smallest spark of hope, fragile yet alive. The ship floated steady now, the stars stretching endlessly ahead, the hum of the engines softer than before. Inside the cabin the silence was heavy, only broken by Sarah's soft breathing as she slept in her mother's arms. Lyra stroked her daughter's hair gently, her eyes drifting to Kale at the front. He sat in the pilot's chair, his shoulders stiff, his gaze unblinking on the horizon. He had saved them, fought for them, risked death against slavers. Yet his face held no pride, no joy, only the same hard focus as before. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "Who are you really?" Her voice barely touched the air, but Kale answered without turning, his tone low and sharp. "A man who has seen too much." The words cut deeper than she expected. She hugged Sarah tighter. "Why risk your life for us?" she asked, her fear and confusion pressing against her ribs. Kale leaned back slightly, his hands resting on the controls, his scarred face half lit by the console glow. "Because I cannot watch and do nothing," he said. "I have watched before, and I still see their faces when I close my eyes." Lyra's chest tightened. She wanted to ask more, but his silence warned her that his past was not an open door. Still, she could not stop wondering. What pain had shaped him into this man who saved strangers, yet carried storms in his eyes? Time passed, the ship sailing through dark and endless space. Kale finally stood, his boots echoing softly on the metal floor. He walked toward a small compartment and opened it. Pulling out sealed packs of food, he placed one on the bench near Lyra, his voice quiet. "Eat." Lyra hesitated, her fingers brushing the pack, but not opening it. "You have given too much already," she said. Kale's eyes narrowed. "Take it, or you won't last." She swallowed hard and opened the pack, Breaking the dry food into small pieces, she placed one in Sarah's hand. The girl stirred in her sleep, chewing weakly before drifting again. Lyra ate slowly, the taste plain but real, her empty stomach grateful even as her heart remained cautious. Kale watched in silence, leaning against the wall, his arms crossed, his face unreadable. Finally he asked, "What was your life before Tarvon?" Lyra froze, her mind flashing with memories she wanted to bury. She lowered her gaze. "We had a village, a home. My mate was killed when raiders came. They took everything. They burned what was left. I fled with Sarah, hoping for safety. But there was none, only cages and hunger." Her voice broke at the end. Kale's jaw tightened, his eyes shifting away, as if the weight of her words pressed against something inside him. "The galaxy destroys the gentle first," he muttered, almost bitterly. Lyra wiped her tears, her voice trembling but firm. "I swore I would never stop fighting for her, even if I had to give my last breath, even if I had to give my body to keep her alive." Her words hung heavy in the air. Kale looked at her, his eyes sharp. "Never speak of yourself like that again." His tone was hard, almost a command. Lyra's heart raced. She whispered, "But it is the truth." Kale stepped closer, his shadow falling across her. "No, it is what they forced you to believe. But you are not nothing. You are not to be thrown away. You kept her alive when no one else would. That is strength, not weakness." Lyra's breath caught, her lips trembling. No one had ever spoken to her like that. She felt heat rise in her chest, not fear, not shame, but something she had almost forgotten, dignity. Sarah stirred again, her small voice murmuring, "Mama." Lyra pulled her close, kissing her forehead. Kale turned away, walking back to the pilot's chair, his voice softer now. "Rest while you can. Danger never stays far." The hum of the ship grew louder as Kale adjusted the course, the stars shifting outside the window. Lyra lay against the bench, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. She whispered before sleep claimed her, "Thank you, Kale." But sleep did not bring peace. Her dreams filled with cages, with fire, with screams. She tossed in restless silence while Kale kept watch, his eyes never leaving the dark beyond the glass. Hours later, the console beeped sharply. Kale leaned forward, scanning the screen, his jaw tightening. A signal was pulsing across the void. A beacon, not Slaver, but something worse, he muttered under his breath. "The patrols." He tapped a switch. The screen showed 3 ships on the edge of the system, their insignias cruel and sharp, the mark of a faction known for purging refugees, not helping them. Kale glanced back at Lyra and Sarah, still sleeping, their faces soft in the dim light. He whispered to himself, "They cannot be found." His hands moved swiftly, pulling the ship off course, into darker space, engines humming louder. But as the patrol ships shifted their path toward him, Kale's eyes narrowed. So they already know. The galaxy was wide, yet even here danger had found them again. The ship slid into darker space, its engines humming with a low growl. Kale kept his eyes on the console, scanning the blinking lights that marked the patrol ships moving closer. His jaw was tight, his scarred hands steady. Lyra stirred awake, her eyes blinking against the dim light of the cabin. She felt the tension in the air before she even looked at Kale. His posture was sharp, like a predator ready to strike. She whispered softly, "What is wrong?" Kale did not turn, his voice low. "We are being hunted again, not Slavers this time. Worse." Her heart froze. She clutched Sarah protectively. "Who?" she asked, her voice trembling. Kale tapped the console. The screen flickered with 3 glowing symbols, cruel and sharp. "The Dominion Patrol. They do not take prisoners. Anyone without clearance is destroyed. They call it cleansing." Lyra's blood ran cold. She had heard stories, villages burned, ships erased, survivors hunted. Her hands shook as she pulled her daughter closer. "Then we cannot run. We will die," she whispered. Kale's eyes narrowed. "Not if I can help it." His fingers moved swiftly, adjusting the course, sliding the ship toward a cluster of old satellites and wreckage drifting in forgotten orbit. The patrol spread wider, their scanners sweeping the void. Kale shut down most of his own systems, plunging the cabin into half-darkness, only the faint hum of life support remaining. He whispered, "Silence now. Even sound can betray us." Lyra hugged Sarah close, her own breathing shallow. The ship drifted among the wreckage, broken hulls of forgotten vessels floating like ghosts. Kale's eyes flicked to the scanner, watching the patrol lights draw closer. Minutes stretched like hours, every second a blade against their throats. Sarah whimpered softly in her sleep. Lyra pressed a hand gently over her lips, whispering, "Shoo, my love, quiet, please." One patrol ship passed close, its massive shadow blotting out the stars. Searchlights scanned across the wrecks, beams sliding dangerously near. Lyra's heart pounded, her arms shaking as she shielded Sarah. Kale's hand hovered over a hidden switch, ready to fire engines at full burst if they were discovered. His voice a whisper, sharp and steady. "Hold." The lights swept across their hull, pausing for a moment that felt like eternity. Lyra's breath stopped. Kale's eyes locked forward, every muscle tense. Then the beam moved on, the patrol drifting away. Kale exhaled slowly, his body loosening for only a second. "Not yet," he muttered. But as the patrol turned, one of the smaller ships broke formation, its scanners flashing. Kale's console beeped sharply. He cursed under his breath. They found something. The smaller vessel veered toward them, its engines flaring. Kale's hand slammed the controls. The ship roared back to life, light flooding the cabin again. Lyra clutched Sarah tightly as the ship lurched forward. The patrol vessel opened fire, bolts of energy tearing through the wrecks, explosions lighting the void, debris scattering around them. Kale twisted the controls, weaving between burning fragments. "Hold on," he barked. Lyra cried out as the ship jolted, sparks flying from a console. Sarah screamed. Kale's face hardened, his voice like stone. "I said hold on." He pulled the ship into a steep dive, the enemy following close. The chase blazed across the field of wreckage, fire and steel raining around them. Kale's hands moved with deadly precision, his voice a low growl. Too close, too fast. He slammed another switch, hidden flares bursting from the back of his ship, exploding in brilliant light. The patrol scanners went blind for a moment, its shots going wide. Kale smirked faintly. Old tricks still work, but the relief was short. Two more patrol ships appeared on the scanner, closing in fast. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "We cannot fight them, Kale. There are too many." Kale's gaze burned. "Then we outsmart them." He twisted the ship toward a dying star on the edge of the system. Its light weak, but its gravity strong. The patrol followed, their engines roaring. The ship shook violently as the pull of the star grew, alarms blaring. Kale's jaw tightened. "They will think we are desperate, but this is where they will bleed." He activated another hidden panel, energy charging deep inside the ship. Lyra's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" she cried. Kale's voice was sharp, unyielding. "Ending the hunt." The patrol ships closed in, firing again, blasts rattling the hull. Sarah screamed in terror. Lyra shielded her, whispering desperate prayers. Kale pulled the ship into a sharp spiral, dragging the patrols closer to the star's gravity well. One patrol ship broke apart under the pressure, flames erupting. The second twisted hard, barely escaping. The third stayed locked on Kale, firing again and again. Kale's hand slammed the final switch, the hidden charge released. A pulse of raw energy burst from his ship, ripping through space like a shockwave. The pursuing patrol's shield shattered, its hull tearing apart, flames consuming it as it was dragged into the dying star's pull. Silence returned, broken only by the groan of Kale's own engines, the ship shaking, barely holding together. He steadied the controls, his breath heavy. Lyra's eyes filled with awe and fear. She whispered, You fought them like a soldier." Kale's voice was low, his eyes shadowed. "Because I was one." The weight of his words fell heavy, the silence that followed deeper than before. Lyra stared at him, realizing the man who had saved them was not only a wanderer, not only a human, but something far more dangerous. The silence after battle was heavy, the hum of Kale's ship uneven, the console lights flickering weakly. Lyra sat with Sarah in her arms, the girl finally drifting back into a fragile sleep, her small face pressed against her mother's chest. Lyra's heart still raced, her eyes fixed on Kale at the front. He sat in the pilot's chair, his back rigid, his hands steady on the controls though his breath was slow and heavy. The scar across his jaw caught the dim light, his eyes sharp but distant, as if he stared not at the stars, but at ghosts only he could see. Lyra's voice broke the silence, soft yet trembling. You were a soldier. Cale did not look at her, his voice low, flat. Once, long ago, I fought for a banner, for a cause. I killed for it, bled for it. And in the end, I buried too many friends to count. He exhaled slowly, his shoulders sinking slightly. I left, but war never leaves you. Lyra hugged Sarah tighter, her own eyes wet. Then why save us? Why not walk away? Cale's gaze turned to her at last, his eyes burning with something fierce, not anger but conviction. Because I will not stand by again. I saw too many innocents die while men like me obeyed orders. I cannot undo the past, but I can choose differently now. Lyra's chest ached, her tears spilling. She whispered, You chose us. Cale nodded once firm. Yes, I chose you. The words struck deep, like a shield around her broken heart. For so long she had been nothing but a body to trade, a burden to discard. Yet this man saw her and her daughter as lives worth saving. The ship shook again, a groan running through the hull. Cale muttered, Engines won't hold much longer. We need a place to land, to repair, to hide. His fingers tapped the console, scanning nearby systems. Lyra wiped her tears quickly, her voice steady now. Where will we go? Cale's lips pressed tight. There is a colony on the edge of the rim, quiet, forgotten. They do not ask questions. We will be safe there, for a time. Hours passed as the ship limped through space, finally descending toward a small green world, clouds parting to reveal valleys and rivers untouched by war. Cale guided the vessel down to a clearing, the ship landing with a heavy thud, the engines whining before falling silent. When the hatch opened, cool air rushed in, the scent of grass and earth. Lyra stepped out slowly, holding Sarah's hand, her eyes wide at the sight of trees swaying gently, the sound of water flowing nearby. It felt unreal after so many nights of smoke and cages. Sarah gasped softly, her small voice filled with wonder. Mama, it's beautiful. Lyra knelt, hugging her daughter, tears burning her cheeks. Yes, my love, yes it is. Cale stood at the edge of the hatch, his tall frame casting a long shadow, his eyes scanning the horizon, always watching, always ready. Lyra looked up at him, her voice firm. Will you leave us now? For a long moment, he said nothing, the wind carrying silence between them. Then he stepped down, his boots pressing into the soft earth. No, not yet, he said, his voice steady. As long as I breathe, no one will touch you. Lyra's breath caught, her heart swelling. She whispered, Why? Cale looked at her and at Sarah, his face unreadable, yet his eyes burning with truth. Because you remind me that I am still human. The words wrapped around her like warmth, her tears falling freely. She lowered her head, whispering, Then we are not alone anymore. Sarah tugged at Cale's coat gently, her small voice shy. Will you stay with us? Cale knelt, his scarred face softening for the first time. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Yes, little one, I will stay. The sun broke through the clouds, light spilling over the clearing. For the first time in years, Lyra felt more than survival. She felt hope, fragile but real. The galaxy was still dangerous, shadows still hunted them. But here, with Cale beside them, they were no longer powerless, no longer forgotten. And as the wind carried the scent of life through the air, Lyra whispered a vow to herself. Whatever comes, we will endure. Cale stood tall beside her, his hand resting near his weapon, his eyes on the horizon. And for the first time, he was not just a soldier or a wanderer, he was a guardian. Together they stepped forward into the light, no longer slaves of hunger or fear, but a family bound by choice, by courage, by the promise of tomorrow.